There's been a lot of discussions online about the decline and fall of The Simpsons. YouTube is already populated by well-made and insightful videos on the topic by the likes of Entertain the Elk and Super Eyepatch Wolf. The general consensus is that Season 9 Episode 2 from 1997, The Principal and the Pauper, in which Seymour Skinner is revealed to be an imposter named Armin Tamzarian, is the jumped the shark moment of The Simpsons. A silly story that needlessly ruined a beloved character. It was a symbol of the crazier, zanier, and less relatable direction the show was going in. I tend to agree with this hypothesis, but as a British fan of the show, I'd argue that it was a number of years later that the final nail in The Simpsons' coffin was hammered in. Over the course of the 1990s, The Simpsons morphed from being a modest depiction of the American lower-middle-class family with a local scope and relatable storylines, to being a group of globe-trotting world travellers. The Simpsons have quite literally been all over the world. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. The Simpsons' trip to Australia in Season 6 remains my favourite Simpsons intercontinental episode, but their later misadventures in Brazil in Season 13 is an example of a post-Season 9 episode that I think is a lot of fun. Ultimately, it was The Simpsons' visit to my home, Great Britain, in 2003 that represented the straw that broke the camel's back for The Simpsons, at least for me. Season 15 Episode 4, The Regina Monologues, is the episode in question. Let me summarise the plot really quickly. Using money gained from a rogue $1,000 bill that arrives at the Simpsons' abode after being withdrawn by Mr. Burns at an ATM and pilfered by the wind, the family decides to spend the money on a dream vacation for Marge to the UK. The episode has a similar vibe to the Friends episode where they visit London. And just as Friends wrangled Richard Branson on board for a cameo, The Simpsons filled the episode with cameos by British mega-celebrities. When I say they filled the episode, I literally mean they filled the episode. It feels like a loose plot wrapped around celebrity cameos, rather than the celebrities being interwoven into the plot. Apparently a whole cavalcade of celebs were considered for the show, including the Archbishop of Canterbury, Rowan Williams, and David and Victoria Beckham. The celebs who did appear include Ian McKellen, who was at the height of his late career at the time playing Gandalf in Lord of the Rings and Magneto in X-Men, J.K. Rowling, the author of Harry Potter, and then Prime Minister Tony Blair.
Hello, welcome to the United Kingdom.
Prime Minister Tony Blair? Why are you greeting lowlifes like us at the airport?
Because I want to encourage all the world to come see the beauty of 21st century Britain.
Would an American dollar encourage you to leave us alone?
No, but thank you.
Tony, Mr. Prime Minister, what should we see first?
There's so much to see here. Parliament, Stratford-on-Avon, the White Cliffs of Dover. Oh, and you Americans love castles. There's a huge one in Edinburgh, the city where I was born.
The place I was born is now a gator farm.
Smashing.
Maybe you could give us a personal tour of your country.
I'd love to, but I'm late for an appointment. I'm greeting a lovely Dutch couple at Gate 23. Cheerio.
Wow, I can't believe we met Mr. Bean!
Ryan Giggs of Manchester United fame also gets a quick reference, which is kind of brilliant and the best line in the show in my opinion.
Can you believe they gave Giggs a yellow card in the box?
The episode was heavily publicised in the British press on its release. Many long-time fans who had been on a hiatus from watching the show tuned back in to see what all the fuss was about. I, for one, was pretty disappointed with the result. It was Super Eyepatch Wolf who mourned The Simpsons as a show that went from making fun of celebrities to worshipping them. And I think this episode is the perfect encapsulation of this, when considering its treatment in particular of Tony Blair. Big-name celebrities have been a part of The Simpsons from the start, but frequently appeared either in a self-deprecating fashion, like with Peter Frampton, relatively anonymously, like with wrestler Bret Hart, or in an amusing bespoke role, like Michael Jackson in the now banned episode Stark Raving Dad. Politicians have been a common source of beratement by The Simpsons writers. George Bush Sr. was regularly mocked after taking aim at the show, and was portrayed in one episode in a pretty unflattering fashion, getting into a physical brawl with Homer.
We are going to keep on trying to strengthen the American family, to make American families a lot more like the Waltons and a lot less like the Simpsons.
Huh?
Hey, we're just like the Waltons. We're praying for an end to the Depression, too.
Similarly, in the late 1990s, the likes of Bill Clinton, Al Gore and others were treated a little more gracefully but ultimately served as the punchline for jokes. Even Arnold Schwarzenegger was kind of mocked for his all-brawns, no-brains public image in the Simpsons movie. I suppose it's worth mentioning that none of the politicians mentioned actually voiced their characters in the show, which might contribute to the fact that they were portrayed in an unflattering manner. Tony Blair, however, came out of the Regina Monologues looking squeaky clean, looking like a real-life James Bond, literally, as he zooms off in a futuristic jetpack. Although I suppose Blair being confused with Mr. Bean by Homer is one chip to Blair's image delivered here, but even that punchline is kinda charming considering how beloved Mr. Bean is globally. The fact is, Blair was becoming amazingly unpopular here in the UK by 2003 as a result of the Iraq War, which he supported and championed in opposition to the general consensus of the country, and as a result of his increasingly close relationship with the similarly unpopular George W. Bush. Blair's short number of lines for the episode were quite literally recorded at the height of the Iraq War.
Tony Blair recorded a voiceover for an appearance in The Simpsons, playing himself. Now, why was this controversial?
Because it let down the tone of The Simpsons.
No, it let down the war because he took time out from it to record it. It was on Friday the 11th of April, yes, mid-war. Sorry to grass him, there you go. But it didn't take long. How many lines? Do you know how many lines?
4 lines.
3. Don't build his part up.
Blair was able to actually claw back a certain degree of public popularity thanks to his appearance. And the short dialogue Blair speaks was actually the result of 8 months' negotiations between the Simpsons writing staff and Blair's director of communications, Alistair Campbell, spin doctor extraordinaire. The Simpsons and Blair, respectively, have fawned over the experience with each other since this episode aired. While it is certainly pretty impressive to wrangle a head of state to appear on the show, I think that the reverence shown to what was a divisive political figure at the time represents the ultimate moment that The Simpsons lost its edge. Although Blair didn't receive universal praise for the appearance, the BBC classified it as a PR masterstroke. Is it really that different from, for example, Vladimir Putin going out and playing hockey in Russia? The truth is, the appearance by Blair, Rowling and the rest were well received in the UK and represented a boost to both Blair's and The Simpsons' popularity, if contemporaneous online commentary is to be believed. And that's the really sad thing. This wasn't just a good thing for Blair, it was a good thing for The Simpsons, at least in a superficial way. The Simpsons had been lagging behind edgier cartoon shows by 2003 in terms of reputation, and the general interest of the public towards The Simpsons had been in decline. Blair's appearance represented an opportunity not just for Blair to boost his public image, but for The Simpsons to boost their public image as the show that attracted the biggest names in the worlds of celebrity and politics. Worlds that The Simpsons had cultivated a loyal audience by vehemently mocking in the past. Who would have thought when The Simpsons went to war with George Bush Sr. that they'd soon be reliant on a figure like Blair to give them a jumpstart out of paralysis? From this point onwards, doting celebrity appearances would form one of the backbones of the show, and every few years a gigantic UK celebrity would appear on the show and create a Tony Blair-style buzz. A temporary buzz, but a buzz nonetheless. Homer Simpson, This Is Your Wife, an episode from 2006 starring Ricky Gervais, the pride of British comedy at the time, in the role of a bespoke character Charles Heathbar, who partakes in a wife swap style show to try to win Marge's heart, represented another substantial step in this direction, creating a temporary renewed buzz around The Simpsons and generating a temporary rise in ratings for the show despite the episode receiving mixed reviews. A similar temporary buzz was also generated by the Banksy couch gag, which appeared on The Simpsons a few years back. The Simpsons has been continually reassessing its history. It's openly discussing the divisive figure of Apu, and it's removed the MJ episode from Disney+. But as Blair and the Iraq War's legacy age like milk, I doubt The Simpsons will be introspective enough to acknowledge they did a massive favour to a figure who many have suggested should be put on trial for entering the country into a war on false pretenses. The banner of edgy counterculture cartoon show had, at this point in time, already been handed over to the likes of South Park and Family Guy, where I doubt Blair would receive such doting treatment. But this moment was when I personally realised The Simpsons would not only never seize that title back from its competitors, but actually didn't really want to. To see The Simpsons giving Blair a much needed PR boost was the moment I knew that there was no turning back for The Simpsons. Entertain the Elk suggested in his video essay that The Principal and the Pauper was such a bad episode because it represented the writing staff underestimating the emotional connection their audience had developed towards their characters. And I'd argue the Regina Monologues represents the writing staff underestimating the countercultural reputation the show had cultivated, whether knowingly or not, throughout the 1990s. It represents the writers obliterating the show's reputation as a kind of political cartoon come to life on the television screen by becoming a mirror image of the status quo, rather than trying to challenge it in any way. Of course, Blair would never have appeared in the show at all if the writers were too disrespectful about him, but if the spirit of the countercultural Simpsons was still alive, Blair wouldn't be required as a cameo in the first place. And that about sums up why the Regina Monologues is, for me, the start of the end for The Simpsons. Thanks for watching. This is just my opinion. I wanted to share my thoughts on an episode that I feel isn't discussed quite enough. If you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing for more rants or random internet videos in the future. Let me know if you think The Simpsons is still awesome, or if you had a similar moment with another episode. That's it from me. See you later.